Imagine waking up one morning and realizing the life you've been living isn't yours. Not entirely. The job, the friends, the way you speak, even the clothes you wear, all subtly shaped by someone else's expectations. At first you brush the thought away, but it lingers. You begin to notice the small betrayals, the quiet compromises, the things you say just to keep the peace. You said yes when you meant no. You smiled when your spirit was aching. You walked paths you didn't choose just to avoid disappointing others. And now there's this silence inside you, but not the peaceful kind, the hollow kind. A voice buried beneath years of pretending begins to whisper, "What if just once I chose me?" That single question cracks the illusion, because once it enters your mind, nothing can ever go back to the way it was. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But here's the part they don't tell you. Choosing yourself feels like betrayal at first. You've spent so long building a self that others could accept, approve of, praise. And now to break from it feels like pulling out your own roots. But it's not betrayal, it's rebirth. There's a moment in life, sudden, quiet, irreversible, when you realize you've spent too much time living for everyone but yourself. That moment often doesn't come in drama or fire. It comes while staring blankly into the mirror, or sitting silently in traffic. It's not loud, but it shatters everything. You feel it in your chest, the ache of disconnection, the quiet scream of authenticity begging to be heard. And from that moment, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to the mask. Jung believed that this is where real life begins, not in the roles we play, but in the courage to walk away from them. Because choosing yourself, it's not a lifestyle trend, it's a psychological revolution. The world around you won't clap. In fact, the moment you start to reclaim your soul, people may resist. They'll say you've changed, that you've become distant, cold, selfish, but you haven't changed. You've simply returned to who you were before you were trained to be someone else. You've stopped performing. And that scares people, because if you can choose yourself, they might have to face why they haven't. This is the uncomfortable truth Jung understood. Most people prefer the comfort of the false self to the chaos of the real one, because the false self is predictable, safe, approved. But at what cost? How many dreams have you buried in the name of being liked? How many boundaries have you erased just to feel loved? How much of you have you traded for acceptance? Ask yourself, who are you when no one's watching? Who are you when you stop trying to be enough? When you finally choose yourself, you'll start to see that you were never too much. You were only too much for the cage you were in. And you begin to sense a power that's been sleeping inside you, waiting for permission. Your own. The first thing that changes, you stop apologizing for existing. You stop negotiating your truth. You stop asking, "Is this okay?" before expressing who you are. And something strange happens, you feel lighter. As if a burden you didn't even realize you were carrying suddenly falls away. That's not coincidence. That's freedom. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the unfolding of the true self, liberated from social masks and unconscious conditioning. It's not self-improvement, it's self-return. But make no mistake, it's not easy. When you start walking this path, old wounds surface. The voice that says, "You're selfish." The fear of being abandoned. The guilt that comes from putting your needs first. It will all rise. And still, you must choose yourself anyway. Because every time you say no to something that doesn't serve you, you're saying yes to something sacred. You. And slowly the world begins to shift. The people who only loved your performance begin to fade. But in their place, come those who love your truth. People who aren't threatened by your boundaries. Who don't need you to shrink so they can feel whole. Who see you not as a role but as a soul. And when that happens, you'll wonder why you ever thought you had to beg for love in the first place. Jung wrote about synchronicity, the mysterious alignment that occurs when we begin living in harmony with our inner truth. It's when chance stops feeling like chance, when the right people arrive, when opportunities appear without forcing, when life seems to be listening. But synchronicity is not magic. It is the natural rhythm of a psyche no longer at war with itself. Still, it will not always be easy. Some days you will grieve. Not just for what you lost, but for the time you spent not knowing you had the right to choose. There will be moments of doubt, echoes of the old voice, you're being difficult, dramatic, self-centered. But if you stay the course, if you resist the pull to go back, you will enter a new kind of solitude, not the lonely kind, the sacred kind, the kind where you meet yourself fully, where you rediscover your forgotten passions, where you remember your own name. One day you'll wake up and realize you don't need to be filled by anyone because you're already full. You won't chase what drains you. You won't tolerate what dishonors you because you'll know deeply that you are enough, enough as you are. Carl Jung once said, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being but by integration. Choosing yourself is not about rejecting your past, it's about claiming your future. You don't need to be perfect to begin. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need the courage to say, this life is mine. This moment is yours. So ask yourself not someday but now, am I ready to stop performing? Am I ready to stop pleasing? Am I ready to stop waiting for someone else to validate who I am? The only person who can give you that permission is you. And the moment you say yes, truly yes, you begin the most radical act of healing there is. You begin to live, so choose yourself again and again until it no longer feels like rebellion, but remembrance.